everyone. This is another one of our Modern Mahjong Zooms. My name is Dara Collins.
I'm Donna Kastman.
And we are thrilled that everybody is so excited for learning Mahjong and learning about the new card. There's many visuals and graphics that we do for our Facebook group, which is Mahjong Community. And those actually inspired a book that we have that we are currently updating for the 2024 card. If you already purchased, we'll put updates on modernmahjong.com. If you haven't met us before, we are two friends that live in Hollywood, Florida. We started a small business of Mahjong dice, and we always said begin with a beautiful roll because we knew that wouldn't be the only thing we did, and we've just been rolling along ever since and expanding. And we just love how Mahjong has opened up so many friendships and just opened up so much community. So Donna is gonna go from there.
Someone's saying there's no sound, but I think that's on her end, so.
Yeah, you might want to either reboot and rejoin or just check your settings both on the computer and on Zoom. There's two different mutes. There's the Zoom mute and then there's your computer mute.
So we're just going to go over a few housekeeping really quickly. We've muted everybody because when people start talking through our conversations, that is very distracting to other people. So you can check how you're seeing it. You can check speaker view or gallery view, and it's in the top right corner of your screen. Speaker view would show whoever is speaking at the moment, and gallery view would show a whole bunch of people. You can move the text box off to the side so it won't interrupt. You just drag it off to either side. As Dara said, I'm gonna check the chat. If you have any questions, I will try to interject, and otherwise we'll answer them as much as we can at the end of the Zoom. If we don't answer your question or there's something you want to ask after the Zoom, just post on our Facebook group, Mahjong Community, or send us an email to modernmahjong@gmail.com.
And thank you very much. Richard said, go to settings and check test audio or click on an alternate speaker. So thank you very much.
Yes, but we'll be replying to the chat. Nan Gold just asked, so.
But if you want to, you could turn off the chat. I mean, you could turn it off if you don't want to be interrupted. So go to the next page.
I'm still admitting people.
Yeah. So the overview of today's Zoom, if you are an experienced player, you want to go get your drink or a paper and pen and take a 2-minute break, we're going to start with some basics. That's only going to be a quick little intro. Then we're going to go on to reading the National Mahjong League card, which even some experienced players have told us that this has been a really helpful way, especially when they're teaching other people how to understand each new card when it comes out. We're going to go over the 2024 card. Every year we do FAQs on them. Last year, there were several that even the day the new card was coming out, people were still asking, can flower 1, 2, 3 be any consecutive numbers? Luckily, there's not as many this year. I think the league, both of it, we think they did a wonderful job. The parentheses really clarify or expand or limit the hands. There's a few that if you haven't been playing that long, we think these FAQs will help prevent any confusion. Then we're going to go over some graphics. I know I'm from New York originally. I know I speak fast. If you need me to slow down, put it in the chat or Donna could wave at me. I will take constructive criticism well. We don't have time in this little over an hour to go through all of our graphics, but many of them are already available for free online, as well as we're going to have a PDF of all of this information for sale on our website. So don't worry if you can't see everything as we're going over this. Then if you have your tiles with you, great. If not, you could use a paper and pen. We're just going to give you an example of a really great homework assignment that you could do at home to really learn the card. Finally, we're going to go over some backup hands, which a friend of mine who told me she read it 3 times and won like 6 games in a row the next time she played. So not saying that's why, but you know, could be. And then at the end, we'll take time for question and answers. So this is what we call reading the card. So everybody knows that there's, I just want to move this out of the way. So everyone knows that there's different sections on the card. And we define them as either fixed, flexible, or mixed. And this is just something that came to us when we were trying to explain to new players. A lot of times people will see the 2, 4, 6, 8 section and think that they could substitute instead of the 4, put a 2. You know, just if it is a fixed section, such as 2024, 2468, edition 13579, 369, if the header is a specific number, you are limited to those numbers. If it's a flexible section, such as consecutive run, you have flexibility. If it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, unless the parentheses clarify it and limit it, you could start that with any number. 0 does not count. You can't start with the white dragon as 0. You could start with any number that will finish by the end of that run. There's some sections that are both mixed, they're fixed and flexible. We don't need to go through all of this. This is available in our Facebook group. But we just want to give an overview of, if you have this understanding, when the 2025 card comes out, you'll be ahead of the game because you'll know how to read that card. Some important notes, and this is something Donna and I always love suggestions from. If you're new, if you're experienced, tell us what other Zooms you would love to have. And we've gotten a lot lately, and you could chime in the chat or send us an email. Some people want us to just go back to the basics and just do a whole Zoom on just like, almost like a town hall. So some really quick notes that are basic. If something's written in green, red, and blue, it's not telling you which suits have to be which tile. It's telling you how many times you need to change suit. So green does not mean bam. Red does not mean crack. So it's just how many suits are in the hand.
Just so you know, people are like squinting and trying to read, and someone said you're going to share it as an email.
This is actually has been emailed out. And actually, if you go to Facebook Mahjong community in the files tab, we could put, right now, I don't want to take the time to do it, but we could send out an email just that includes this graphic.
Yeah.
So an important thing is if the dragon is the same color as the numbers, that means they match. If it's in a different color, that means they oppose. So just like in the quints, if you have your card to get today, somebody was playing quint number 4, which is 5 flowers, 4 dragons, and 5 numbers. The dragons and the numbers are in different colors. They can't match. They must oppose. So those are just things that, once you understand the card, will come to you with practice. Parentheses, highly important. When you go over the card, read them as if you are reading the most important book, because even if something's in 2 colors, sometimes it might say, exposures may match. It might override the colors on the card. So we shall slide on. Okay.
Just so you know, Dara, someone asked if we can put the PDF in the chat.
If I take a break when Donna's answering questions, I'll look and see if I could get that quickly. Of course, what you always want to happen the night before you have like 1,000 people signed up for a Zoom is my computer crashed last night. So I'm using a very old, very kind of stubborn computer. So I don't even want to touch anything in case my screen moves off.
So one thing that Dara and I were playing today that came up when you were saying that parentheses are so important. And one of the examples is the second hand under quints.
Yep.
And we'll talk about this later. It's 1 norths and 8s. Someone today thought they only could play 1s and 8s. Right. But in the parentheses, it says any 2 non-matching numbers.
Exactly.
So that's a very good example of that. And we'll talk about that later.
So when we first got the card, we just looked over to see what are people going to ask questions about so we could kind of nip it in the bud. So 2024 number 2, which we put it up there in case you don't have your card. It's 4 flowers, 4 a Kong. If you don't know, 3 of a kind identical is Pung, 4 of a kind is Kong, 5 of a kind is Quint. So it's a Kong of flowers, a Kong of 2s in green, a Kong of white dragons used as 0, and then 2 singles, because spacing on the card doesn't matter, the 2 and 4, 2 singles. And it says any 2 suits. So what's important to know about this hand is even though the white dragons are in blue and the 2s are in green and red, when the white dragons are used as a 0, they are suit neutral. So they don't count as a suit. So as long as your 2 and your 24 are 2 different colors, you're fine. So the colors on the card don't dictate, but how many. So the 2, 2, 2, 2, the 4 2s can be any of the 1, 3 of the 3 suits, and the 24 could be the other remaining 2. Moving on, same section, number 4. So we thought it was interesting here that the parentheses in this hand said 2024 any 1 suit. So 2024 is a grouping of singles. I have never seen it on the card that the year was broken up into different colors. So Really, I don't think that parentheses was necessary, but maybe the Mah Jongg League just thought, let's just make sure that everyone knows that that's a set of singles all in the same suit. The fact that they put it in blue might make people think, well, then it has to be dots because the white dragon people associate with dots. That 2024 could be a red crack for 2 and 2 and 4, and the white dragon used a 0. So when the white dragon is used as 0, it is suit neutral and can be used with any suit.
Barbara was just interject, said flowers and winds are always in blue.
Yes. And it's funny because depending on your eyesight, sometimes the flowers and the wind, sometimes it looks black, but they're a very dark navy. And there's been a lot of discussion on our Facebook group, Mahjong community, about how great it would be if they did like maybe purple and, 3 colors that aren't associated with the suits. But this is how it's been. This is how they do it. So for addition hands, and in the chart that we just went over before, addition hands are one of those fixed sections 99% of the time. It is the lucky 7s, and it is any hands that add up to 7. It must be only those listed. And it must be, in this hand, it must be all in one suit. So as we get by later, you'll see, just remember that the addition hands are all in one suit, but the multiplication hands, M for multiply, M for more, you need 3 suits. So addition, all in one suit, the multiplication, which are hidden in 2, 4, 6, 8, and 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, those you need the 3 suits. Moving on, the 1, 3, 5, 7, 9 really probably isn't confusing because it really reinforces what we all know. That section is these numbers only. The reason we believe that they put, and when I say we believe, we're not speaking for the Mah Jongg League, we're interpreting what we believe they mean. 1, 3, 5, that first one all in green, so let's say you're using BAM, those pungs match, and some people learn by saying pair, some people learn by saying middle. Those pungs match the middle pair of the run. So you must have 3s in different suits for that part of the hand. For the second part of the hand, the 7s match the middle pair of 7s. So you can't do 1, 3, 5 and then pungs of 5. You can't do 5, 7, 9 and then pungs of 9. Those pungs must be in different suits and must match the middle pair. So this, I think, is going to be the most asked question in the card. In the 1, 3, 5 section, hand number 2. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were still going on that. No, so 1, 3, 5, 7, 9 must be as written, the entire section. So if it says 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, unless the parentheses say any of these numbers or whatever, it must be exactly as written. You can't make the 1 a 5 or anything like that. So moving on to the right panel for 3, 6, 9, number 4, which is a pung of 3s, a Kong of matching dragons, a pung of 3s in a different color, a Kong of matching dragons. Now, the reason that we think this might be a little confusing is if you look at your card, if you have it, the second hand says like before the word pungs. So they were able to fit the word like there. In number 4, it was so big of all the qualifications they need, they couldn't fit in the word like. But if you played for years and you see this hand, you're automatically assuming that it's like pungs. We call the league to confirm. If you use 3s and dragons, the other number must be the same number. You can't mix it up and do 3 dragon, 6 dragon. It must be 3 and 3 or 6 and 6 or 9 and 9. So we think that's going to probably be the most asked other than this fun quint. So later on, you'll see, I love puns. We came up with, this is the quintessential backup hand. So for quint number 2, I think this is very interesting on their part because they have created a hand, especially if you're a tournament player, that is going to make defense exceptionally difficult. Because if I'm playing with Donna and she has 4 wests up and 5, 7 cracks, she could be needing any other number other than 7 in any suit other than crack. So you're scanning the table at that point, or you're breaking up your hand. So, because you're throwing in, especially in a tournament, you're throwing into 2 exposures. So that is going to be a really interesting hand to see how it plays out in tournaments. So
And like we said before, it doesn't have to be ones and eights where people read it literally and they think it can only be ones and eights.
exactly. So it's any two non-matching numbers in any two suits. So you could have crack and dot, you could have bam and crack. I think if I was writing the card, I think the reason they picked 1 and 8 makes sense, because if they put 1 and 2, people would assume it had to be consecutive. If they put, you know, 1 and 5, you know, any other numbers that they put, if they put 2 and 4, people might have assumed that it had to be a certain even number or odd. I thought 1 and 8 were good numbers to show that it could be any number. Like somebody, Barbara said, there's 1 odd, there's 1 even. So I thought that was a great way for them to write it. Some general reminders. If you already know this, you'll be happy that we're saying it here. You can never use a joker for a single or a pair or a grouping of singles. And what a grouping of singles are anything that's not identical. News, the year, 1, 2, 3 on the consecutive run that starts with the Quint of Flowers, 4 and 6, East and West. Those are all singles. You cannot use a joker. Now, the reason a lot of people get confused is because you can call one of those tiles for Mahjong if it's your 14th tile, but you can still not use a joker for it. So that little discrepancy when people are starting, I think, is the reason for the confusion.
There's a good comment and a good question. So Nancy said there are 36 non-matching numbers, which is very interesting. And then Barbara said, I have to go back up. How do you defend in a tournament and will you be penalized?
So it's really a great question. I mean,
Yeah.
We were talking to Barb and Jen about it. I mean, it'll be very interesting to see how Mahjong Fever and other tournaments, you know, relate to that, because if a lot of tournaments have different scoring, some do penalize if you throw to 0, some penalize only if you throw to 1 or 2 or more exposures. So it'll be very interesting to see, because throwing to 2 exposures, I mean, you're going to have to break up because there's 9 numbers. So it's 1 through 8 in 2 suits. So
Barbara, I don't know if it's a question or a comment, but she said, I wonder if they'll penalize you both odd or both even. I think that's a question. Do the numbers have to be both odd and both even?
I think maybe they were, maybe Barbara could chime in. Maybe she was saying how it's smart that they did an odd and an even number to expand. But right now, my math, I'm not thinking very clearly. But isn't it 1 through 9 and 1 through 9 less 1 number? So it's 16 tiles, I think, that you could have.
Yeah, Barbara said that's 2 separate statements, and somebody else just asked, does it have to be 1 odd and 1 even? So
yeah, no, it could be any 2 numbers that are not the same. It could be 1 and 2, 1 and 9, 3 and 5, any 2 numbers. And so you can use jokers in anything that does not have a single or a group of singles or a pair. So
Carrie said in 13579 number 7, it says these numbers only. The other hands in that category don't say that, but
yeah, that's exactly,
all these numbers only. Yeah.
So that's exactly what our comment was on that. So the reason they were saying these numbers only, they weren't specifically referring to that whole hand. They were referring to the pungs at the end of that hand. So 3 and 3 must match the middle pair of 3s in the first part of the hand. So if you want to call it 13579 number 7A, and then in B, the middle pair is 7s. So the pungs at the end must be 7s. So it's those numbers. Maybe it might have been if they said these pungs numbers only or something like that, because the whole section has to be those numbers only. So that is where we got for this. So this is a little bit out of order in how we're doing our PDF, but I thought this would be a good time to bring this up. So the biggest question we get, other than can you use a joker in a pair and can I call a tile if it's my Mahjong, is how do I pick a hand? So we did a whole YouTube where you could watch on the Charleston. Just Donna and I did a Charleston video. We had a discussion with Karen Guin. We've had a lot of strategy YouTubes. Those are great videos to watch. You could put on your AirPods while you're walking and listen. One of the things that we really stress is during the Charleston, you're building towards a section rather than a specific hand. And that way, that gives you a lot of flexibility. So you don't have to memorize the card, but of course it helps if you know all the sections. So if you read the parentheses, you could know what limits the hands, what expands them, what clarifies it. It's just very helpful to read the whole card. Arrange your tiles on your rack in different ways. And this might sound basic, but if you first do them in like numbers, you might not realize that you have the year 2024. So do it by like numbers, do it by suits, do it by consecutive run. Take them off and move it around, do evens, do odds. There's a lot that you will see if you switch it around. And the other thing that is a great thing to do is we have 3 other posts that we shared in our Facebook group, and that'll be in the PDF. Look at the card and figure out how many hands have flowers. Where are they? If you see an exposure of flowers, it'll limit for you to know what other people are playing. So it's mainly an offensive game, but you also, you know, there's no second place. So you want to win and you want to prevent somebody from getting the winning tile. As you get new tiles during the Charleston, I love borrowing strategies from other games. I think it's really important. I mean, from doing all these Zooms and from speaking to all these wonderful teachers and friends and instructors, I realized that my body language was giving away. I mean, I play with Donna. When I was one away, instead of slumping my posture, I mean, I would sit up straight, shoulders back, and lean into the table, waiting to be like, Mahjong. So now I know I either have to start sitting up or I have to stay, you know, kind of casual. If you're a player that doesn't rack your tiles all the time, because I know this is going to be a side, little side point, but you do not have to rack. It's good for new players to rack because it's one of the ways to close the window. You don't have to. But if you're a player that picks up a tile and instantly puts it down to discard it, if all of a sudden you're racking or vice versa, you're giving tells to the other players that you're either closer to your hand or not as close. So just pay attention to your body language and what you're doing during the game.
Okay, Susan asked a question. You recently said collect multiples, and that's great advice. Should we be organizing by multiples first or by sections? I mean, everyone has their different way. I do, if I have multiples, I put them on the left side of my rack and I start working, seeing what I have there. I don't know, Dara, what do you do?
So that's a great question, and especially this card, because the reason, and last year, I think I did addition hands maybe once. This year, the addition hands and the multiplication kind of bring tiles in that normally aren't together in a hand. So if you have multiples, look at those addition hands. Do you have 1s and 7s? Well, normally that wouldn't be a hand. But on this year, if you pick in 6s in the same suit, it is. So don't be usually what I do is if I have a multiple, I think of it like a shiny fish that's trying to get my attention. And I'll be like, okay, just because they're together, they don't help me at all. Let me get rid of them. This year, if I have a multiple, I say, wait a second, can it work with some of these hands? So I think it's an exceptionally flexible card for that reason. So yeah, definitely move your multiples around. The other idea, and this is to prevent tells, when you get tiles from people during the Charleston, it all depends on the vibe of your group. Today we were playing, you know, one of our friends said at least 5 times, again, no jokers. That's fine. If that's your group dynamic, that's great. However, you're giving information out. You're telling people, then again, we did find that some people bluff, but she wasn't bluffing.
We won't name names.
But if you're sitting there and you take tiles from someone and you go, oh, I read the wrong way, then the person who passed them to you knew that you just got rid of those tiles and you don't need them. So what I do every time, even if I know I don't need the tile, I put it in my rack, I move it around a few times so no one's paying attention, and then I take them out and hand them to someone else. However, the funny thing is sometimes when you do that, especially with the addition hands, you might find something that didn't pop out before. So I think of any of you who saw Queen's Gambit, which they're coming out with a sequel. There was one day I was playing and I was literally like, the tiles were like on the ceiling, like how Beth was doing it in that movie. Like it was just you know, and you ride that wave. When those days come, because you know, the next time you play, you might not win any hands.
But I do that
on
when we play online on Real Mahjong, I switch them around in the, click on that button that switches the order. And I said, oh, wait, I have more consecutive. I have more twos than, something like that. So I just switch them around and see.
Yeah.
What I have, Lisa said, I always get 3 5s and 7s. I want to suggest the league to be able to do hands with those numbers too. I don't know if that'll ever happen. It happens to me and I have no ones.
So for this year, you might be really good at the multiplication hand in that section.
Right.
Because if you're going for a 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, but you're not getting 7s, or you're getting 5s and 7s, and that second hand, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The B in that multiplication hand might be right up your alley.
Right.
So before I go on, the Charleston is not done in 3 players because we had a post in Mahjong community, and I forget the number, but with the number of tiles that everybody gets, when you play with 3, you get so many extra picks that you really don't need to do a Charleston. What I love about playing with 3 and not doing a Charleston is I realized that my strength is the Charleston.
Yeah, we didn't.
I win so much more when I play with 4 than when I play with 3 because I feel like I am good at passing and not being committed to a hand. So during the Charleston, I see what I need isn't coming in and I'll switch. Where if you are playing with 3 and you don't do a Charleston, you just start picking and throwing. If you want to,
Diane had asked what define multiples. It's just more than one of a certain tile. So,
you know, in years past, if you had multiple 1s and multiple 7s, you would just pick one and get rid of the other. Where this year, if you have 1s and 7s, you might keep them if they're in the same suit and go for addition.
Addition hands, yeah.
So, and then if it's kind of late in the game, the Charleston, you might keep the multiple and save it for like midway through the game to discard one of them and hope, as Michelle Frizzell says, joker bait. You hope that you put out the 2 dot and you have another one, someone calls it, and then you could exchange. Hopefully they used a joker.
Charlene said, in playing with 3 people, is it okay to have a table rule where you do the Charleston? Mm-hmm. Yes. I mean, we've done it. As Dara said, we played with a friend and we just didn't enjoy it as much. We didn't do as well. We missed the Charleston and gathering tiles there. But yes, you can. I mean,
so the official rule is no Charleston, but we are all for house rules as long as you sit down with your group and you literally spell them out. Because we know a lot of tension and a lot of private emails that we get from people or anonymous posts that we get on our group is when a house rule kind of went haywire. So if there's a problem with a house rule, the league won't answer. Well, right now it's very hard to get in touch with them because of cards. But if you call them during the regular year and you say, well, in our game, we have this house rule.
Yeah, they won't.
They won't answer because there's just too many, caveats with it. So, here we were saying how the strategy all teachers usually agree on is study the card. You don't need to memorize it. On our Zoom card review with Barney, he gave a ton of his tips. That's back on our YouTube channel. You could watch that on just ways to learn the card. There's apps like Mahjong Practice app, which, I realized I didn't have.
Right.
We're doing a giveaway.
Right, we're doing a giveaway. We'll share it at the end.
So we are doing a giveaway, and it is going to be for 5 American Mahjong practice apps, and it's going to be on our social media. And if you're not on social media, we'll email it out and you could reply. It's either going to be phone, iPhone, or Android. So 5 people are going to win a gift card so they can buy that. And Lisa's scoring was taken out on the back of the card this year.
Right.
So that is in Mahjong Made Easy, and we're updating our visual companion guide. We'll make sure, it's in there, but we'll make sure to update that as well. So one of the graphics that we did was, in order to learn the card, it's really helpful when you're picking a hand and when you're quickly, because there's so much going on. You're playing to build your hand, you're making sure you're not throwing your friend's tile. So it's really helpful if you recognize which hands have like pungs, like kongs, and like pungs and kongs. And I'm going to go through this really fast, but the individual pictures of this are on Facebook. There's a PDF on our Mahjong group. So,
but let me just interrupt, because very basically, when people say pungs, kongs, they don't know. It's 3 of a kind, 4 of a kind. So when you look at the pattern of some of these hands, we might say pung kong, but in your mind, you could say 3, 4, 3, 4.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So knowing these things, because some people kind of like put their nose up at it and like, why are you wasting your time doing this for people? If you know what hands have pungs and kongs, it'll help you choose a hand. It'll help you identify what opponents are playing. It'll help you identify safer discards. And you could figure out if someone's hand's dead. If you know there's certain exposures that are not on the card and you see them do it, then you'll know that they have a dead hand. So like number pungs, there's 8 of them. And you could see that the 3, 6, 9 one we highlight here, that they confirm that that's like number. Then there's 8 hands with like number, half of them are concealed. So we do these as posts on Facebook and we don't give the answer right away. So you can quiz yourself. Which cards have like number comps? So believe it or not, there's only 3, which just seems really low for if you see someone putting up, you know, 4 1s and 4 1s, there's very few hands they could be playing. So, which have like number pungs and kongs. So once again, there's only 4 of those. So I'm not saying you have to memorize them, but just kind of have a, wait a second, I know there's only a few and you could scan the card. And you know, while you're playing, you want to be able to keep the pace of the game, and knowing these things are really helpful to keep you moving along. So here we did a very similar review, but here we did this with flowers and dragons. So we asked everybody to look through the card and say how many flowers and dragons. So how many quints, kongs, pungs, pairs, all of that. So quints of flowers, there's 2. And a lot of people sometimes get surprised to see a quint outside of the quint section, but you don't need a joker. So the consecutive run with the 5 flowers, if you are lucky enough to have 5 flowers, it could be a jokerless hand. By definition, the quints are never jokerless, the quint section. So if you see somebody put up 5 flowers, you know right away they're playing one of these 2 hands. There's 6 hands with kongs. So there are several hands if you see 4 flowers, but really knowing that there's only 6, if you see 4 flowers, it's easy to kind of scroll and look. And people will ask us, like, how do I become a better player? If you see someone with 4 flowers and they start throwing out a lot of dragons, well, then you could rule out what hand they're not playing. So it really does help. And I'm not saying beginners that you should be able to keep all of this in your mind, but those are things as you improve. How many hands with pungs of flowers? And that's a trick question because there's none. So if anybody puts up 3 flowers thinking that it's 2022, they have a dead hand. So this, obviously, we can't spend too much time on here because I don't want to keep you all night, but there's 17 hands with pairs of flowers. So how many quints of dragons? That's another trick question. If you see somebody put up 5 dragons, dead hand. So there are 9 hands with kongs of dragons. There are, and by the way, this is going to go on YouTube. So don't worry if you can't keep up with this. You could watch this on YouTube and take screenshots if you don't want to buy the PDF. So don't worry about that. There's 5 hands with pungs of dragons. There's only 1 hand with pairs of dragons, but it's the concealed hand in the second to bottom on the right. So finally, after the pungs, kongs, flowers, dragons, we did the same with wins. And
here's a question from Doreen. Should you go for a hand with pairs if you don't have the pair after Charleston?
so the answer that 90% of teachers probably would give is no.
Oh, I do.
I do.
I do.
Because I feel like it's almost as likely that you'll pick one of them and then you could call the other one. Oh, good. Okay, so Donna, we're in good company. Toby does too. All you need is one. You could use jokers, hopefully, for the other exposures. And then when the other one's thrown, you could call Mahjong. So you just have to remember, even if you're playing a concealed hand, no matter what hand you're playing, any tile other than a joker can be called for Mahjong. So I'm not afraid of not building my, I know a lot of other teachers would disagree. I know Michelle would probably disagree, but I will go for that.
No, but like today I won the singles, the first singles and pair hands, 2, 4, 6, 8, 2, 4, 6, 8 with 2 flowers. But I knew that if I didn't get them, I could switch it. There's so many other hands with 2, 4, 6, 8 that I went for it, knowing I could switch.
Right.
So
here's 4 hands with Kongs of Winds. There's a lot of hands with Pungs of Winds, and they're the win section this time, kudos to the league. Usually when somebody has an exposure in wins, you're like, oh, this is the hand they're doing. I can't throw this. This time there's a lot of flexibility. There's a few with pairs, and one of them is concealed. Before we go on to the rest of this, Amy, I love that question about passing flowers. If it is an optional pass at the end, unless I am 1 away and all I need is like 1 other tile and I'm east, I will keep the flower rather than pass it. If it's a must across, I will pass a flower. I've been passed a pair of flowers that I thought was kind of surprising, but there's a lot of teachers that have set rules, never pass, north and south together, never pass. We did a whole section on the Charleston that you could watch on YouTube. I'm building my hand during the Charleston. I'm not trying to give you a whole hand, but I'm focusing on me, self-care. So as long as I'm not giving somebody, I'm not going to give somebody a flower, a 2 and a 0, but I will give something that might be valuable if it isn't valuable to me.
but you also have to remember what you've passed around and what you see being passed around and figure out if that's, if the flower keeps getting passed around, it's safe, it's okay. But so you just have to remember.
And just the same as some people say, I never pass, wins or whatever. If I have a north, east, and south, which if I had all 3, I probably would be keeping them, but I try to break them up. I try to not pass a north with a south, so there's tiles that work really well together. And I read somewhere, I think this year, which is surprising because I would think it would be 2, but I think 1 and 9 are the most common tiles used if you figure out all the hands. And the only hands that tiles that aren't singles are red dragon, green dragon, and flower. So last year, I would get rid of my wins right away because there were so many single wins, and I would get rid of my dragons right away. Where this year, I don't have to worry about that. Oh, Toby thinks 3 is the most popular. Okay. So it's just really interesting to see. Several years ago, if you missed calling right away, you would never see that tile again because somebody would win that quickly. Where last year it was different. We had a lot of wall games in the beginning. Where this year, I think it's going to be very quick wins.
Edie had a question. How close to Mah Jongg should you be after the Charleston? I'm usually pretty far away. We've talked about this a lot.
I love, Michelle was a guest on our Zoom one time, and you could watch the replay of Michelle Frizzell. And I don't remember, I'm paraphrasing, but I think 4 away at the end of the Charleston, you're like the leader. Where if you're 5 or 6, you're the underdog. If you're less than that, you're so I aim, which, obviously you don't know what you're going to get, but I aim to hope to be around 4 away. And that's why I'll play 3. If I want to play Mahjong, I'll play online, I'll play 3. But that's why I really, thank you, 4 is a contender.
Yeah.
So I really feel like Charleston is the most important aspect of the game. So if there's anything,
we've learned that over the years. Yeah, we definitely have learned that. And we teach people that.
Yeah.
Sharon said, I like having 7 or 8 of the tiles after the Charleston.
So this is something that you could actually download. We're updating it and we're including it in our other PDF, but this is something that I went through and it is not exhaustive. There will be others that you could switch, but to me, one of the most important things other than the Charleston is while you're playing, especially if you're doing a singles and pair, or somebody asked before, what if you don't have your pairs, being able to have a backup plan. Everybody needs a plan B. So there are many exposures that we use, and these are what we call just our default backup hands. So on this card, it's exposures like Donna said, 3 for Pung, 4 for Kong. They're either Pung, Pung, Kong, Kong, or some other type of version like that. If you look at any numbers, that's actually 4 of a kind, 3 of a kind, 4 of a kind, 3 of a kind. And the reason all of these are so wonderful is you could just dump jokers into any of these. You pick a joker and you don't have to worry about having a pair, having a single. Now, usually, depending on how many games I've played, I will do these to get a win and then I'll challenge myself and do other hands. So it all depends on who I'm playing with, what I've won that day. But these are great hands that if your pair's out, your singles are exposed, you could dump your tiles into these.
Someone had an interesting question today when we played. They were like, are you playing to win? Or are you playing to learn the card? And since the card's so new, I said to her, I'm just going to play different sections. I just want to see and learn. That's a good way to learn the card. Yes, I want to win, but you know, in the beginning, you might want to try your hand at different sections,
right,
to get to know the card.
So, and then another question that came up is she said, I never play the quint hands. Even if I have one joker, and especially this year, if I have two, right away I look to the quints. And I think that number 2 is the quintessential backup hand. You just need any 4 wins and any 2 numbers. And I purposely put it in 5s here, just so people would see that it doesn't only have to be 1 and 8. So if you're intimidated by quints, this is the year that you should look, and this goes for the whole card. When I was teaching my husband, if he had 2s up, I knew that he either needed 1s or 3s because all he did was consecutive runs. So this is a great card, especially if this is like the first card that you got since learning. This is a great card to go beyond your comfort level. Go for the quints, go for singles and pairs. When I get my deal, the first thing I do, unless I have a lot of jokers, is I look at the singles and pairs section. That is the first thing I do to see how far I am from those. And it makes them less intimidating. So.
But then if you have jokers, you do not look at singles and pairs and you look at
and then this is what we're doing. So these were the default backup. Here's the quintessential. Okay, so the next thing we'll do is basically every year the singles and pairs are written to correspond to another section on the card. And these aren't exhaustive, but these are great ideas of what to think of if you're going for singles and pairs and one of your tiles are out, but you started picking in jokers. And another sub note on that, I've heard a lot of people say, I never play concealed hands, they're harder. And if you actually look at the concealed hands, they're usually easier, except for the fact that you can't call. Because usually there's pungs, not kongs. So don't be intimidated just because you can't call, especially if you have jokers to fill in. And I agree with that, Marcia. The best way to attract jokers is to pretend you're going for singles and pairs, and then that's when you pick 4 in a row. So
there's been a few comments about stopping the Charleston when one woman always stops, the Charleston. I don't know if we're going to get into that now, but there's some discussion there.
Well, we could refer you. We did a unscientific poll, thank you to our Mah Jongg community, and we sent out a PDF to people to fill in a little chart. And when everyone stopped the Charleston, they didn't tell the group why. They just said, I'm stopping the Charleston. And you never have to tell why. And then at the end, they recorded whether they won or whether it was a wall game. The only time, and this was all across the US and Canada, the only time stopping the Charleston improved their game and their winning was if they had less than 3 tiles or 2 to pass towards one hand. So if you hear someone saying, I don't know what to do, I have 7 for this hand and 7 for that hand, and I heard before somebody, Susan,
Andrea said you have half of one hand and half of another. Is it better to stop the Charleston or go for one hand?
You can't pick on one hand.
Yeah.
Cut your losses, pick the one. What I do, I usually sit there and separate them. And I don't look necessarily, just to throw back to the pairs question, I don't necessarily look to see what pairs I'm missing. I look to see what exposures I can call. So if it's like pung kong, and I have 2 of the one I need 3 of, and I have 3 of the one I need 4 of, I'll choose that hand over the hand that I might have more tiles for, or the same amount, but can't call anything. So all these things kind of get more intuitive as you play. So overlapping tiles is something that we consider, if you're looking at singles and pairs number 6, which we have up there, and you're looking at 2024 number 4. They might look similar, but when you really look at both of them, they both need a pair of north, an east and west, a pair of south, and 2024. So if you're playing the singles and pairs number 6, and you pick in two jokers and then somebody throws the last East, you could pivot to 2024 and then you have a hand and you only have 4 different tiles between the two. So when you go through the entire card, there's hands that have 10, 11, and even 12 overlapping tiles. So when you look at the card, you don't realize it, but it's amazing how many. So this is your homework time. So if you have your set out, if you could just move your computer back a little bit or your phone, whatever, or if you have a pen and paper, just write down the cards that are on the screen. So it's
Tiles, you mean?
tiles. Sorry, I teach Canasta.
I know.
I did good. That was the first time I said cards. So 2 flowers, 1 1-bam, 3 3-bams, 2 4-bams, 3 5, a north, a joker, and an 8 crack. So in the chat, just if this was the Charleston, what would you be getting rid of? Okay, so we have consensus. So let's say you get rid of those. You get rid of the north or the 8 crack first. And if it was a muster cross, that's basically the question. So let's say you get rid of, and the next 3 picks you get, so get rid of those, move those away from your hand, and instead put in your hand a 3-bam and 2 jokers. So it should look like what's below: 2 flowers, 3 3-bams, 2 jokers, 2 4-bams, another joker, and 3 5-bams. So the question is, do you have Mahjong?
Linda wrote Mahjong. Linda Miller.
Okay. How many different Mahjongs do you have? And is your hand worth 25 cents? Because you could have the consecutive run worth 25 cents, or you could have the quint worth 40 cents. So it's the exact same tiles, and the way you arrange them is the value. And that just shows how flexible this card is. So when you put your tiles up, and this is all assuming that you didn't have any prior exposures. You can't change it once it's up. But when you put, I like the wow.
Yeah.
When you put the tiles up, the winner has to tell everyone what they're owed. Now, of course, and I know a lot of people's hair on the back of their neck is going to stand up. Of course, we all aim to play in a friendly game. But friendly describes personality and not playing by the rules. So if you play by the rules and you put it up and you only say, here, I won 25 cents, and everyone pays you, and then someone else after you're paid says, well, actually, you had the quint, it was 40, it's actually too late. I'm not saying that that's something our group would do. Our group would probably give the extra 15 cents. But by the rules, you are supposed to announce your value.
It's funny,
So-
we were teaching one of my college roommates and now they're playing, and she played today and she said, they don't play, this new group doesn't play with, they don't roll the dice. And I told them, Dara and Donna, and I was lecturing them. I said, good for you. Yeah. I said, then just cheat, stack the deck, put some jokers
Yeah.
in and just show them how it works.
So this is a great practice. You could look at the card, or you could look at the hands that we are going to go through now and take 10 cards. And if you guys like this, comment below series, and we can make this a series in Mahjong community where we give you 10 tiles and tell you, take 10 tiles or 12 tiles towards a hand, and then pick in 3 jokers, or pick them in and see how many hands you can make out of it, or how easy it is to switch between the hands. So this is just a quick review of the singles and pairs. So if you look at number 1, this is the one Donna won today. So if you look at that 2 4 6 8, it is really easy to switch to 2 4 6 8 number 1 in 2 suits or 1 suit, or 2 4 6 8 number 6. So these are great ways to just use the tiles you have and switch to another hand.
Are you
And
saying my hand was easy that I won?
no, you won the hard hand. I'm saying it didn't work out for you. So all of this, I'm going to go through quickly. All of this is on something. Hold on, let me send the chat to everyone.
This is funny when we play with some people like negative Nellies, we call them, and they're like, oh, that was an easy hand, you know, like, okay.
Yeah. So if you want, after this, this whole section is actually on that link. So it's PDF updated.
It's in the chat.
So this is in the chat. So these are all great examples. If you look at consecutive, here, I just want to show some really great ones. So the singles and pairs, I mean, this is all in the PDF. I'll go slow just so on YouTube you could watch it again. But I want to get to the meat of it all. Okay, so for the 2024 section, there are some hands. I mean, if you look at number 3, you have to remember that it's not just what you're looking at on the card. So if you look at number 3, which is Flower Flower 2024 in green, then 2s in red, 2s in blue. What if instead the parentheses say you could do 2s or 4s? So if you did Flower 2024 4-4, you have a ton of overlapping tiles with the like number 1. You have 11 of the same tiles. So let's say you're doing the 2024 hand and all the soaps are out. Well, that's okay. You already have 2 2s. Add in a joker or another 2. You can call the 2 and you can get the like number flower hand. So there's things like this all over. You could print this out. I'm trying to see. And then there's some that you wouldn't even think that go together. The addition hands, if you look at addition hand number 1, 2, and 3, you have consecutive run of 6, 7. You have 5, 7. So if you pick in 6, that's consecutive. You have 4, 3, 4. So if you pick in 2 or 5, that's consecutive. So there's just a lot of ways to start with a hand. And, you know, we don't want to go too over 8 o'clock. So if you guys want just a review on backup hands, we could do another Zoom. But 3, 6, 9, number 4, where you have a pung, we discussed this in the frequently asked questions, you have 10 overlapping tiles with the like number hand with dragons. So these are all great ways of, shoot, my hand isn't working out how I wanted it, but I could switch to something else.
Wait, just before we move on, just Susan, there's no silly questions, but she said, when rolling dice to see who is east, do you roll 2 dice as you do when you're breaking the wall? So, I mean, we never really do that.
So definitely in other styles of Mahjong, and by the way, rolling the dice, I mean, there's over 40 styles of Mahjong played over the country, in the world. I believe that a lot of other versions do use 3, and they do 1 to find out who's east, and then 2 for the wall. Because when we sell dice, some people have asked us about selling them in sets of 3.
3, right.
So these are just other great backups for different hands.
Patricia said, please do another Zoom on overlapping hands.
So all of this, that is free. The PDF bit.ly is free. All of this is going to be on a printable PDF for a nominal charge on our website, which is modernmahjong.com. If this is helpful and there's other things you want, I know you guys said more Zooms. If you haven't watched it yet, Barney's card review is great. He goes over the different sections. It's very entertaining and informative. And the PDF that he refers to, we have a free download where you can chart your hands and chart all the tiles in the hands. And do you remember those old-fashioned pens that have like red, blue, green, all the colors? They're available on Amazon. You could do that and write them all down. And then that way you see all the different variations of how you could do a hand. That's available for free. We also have a dot tracker. Some people like to keep dots on the hands that they win, which it's actually sometimes a tell. I wouldn't bring that to a tournament because then people know what hands you're, usually play. But we have a printable one. So you could just text yourself what hands you won. And then when you get home, just put in different ones. On May 5th, those of you who know Bubbe Fischer, she's also known as Karen Guin. She is going to do her tips and tricks. So she has a great way of just coming up with fun names for the hands on the card that are a great way to remember them. Barney's hand for the new pattern of the consecutive run, which is 3, 2, 4, 2, 3. He calls it a mustache. So he started our Zoom with a mustache. It's actually May 5th, which is kind of funny because she thinks it looks like a sombrero. So that's perfect timing. If you play Canasta, I work very well with good friends named Donna. So this is my Mahjong Donna. And then I think on the Zoom is Canasta Donna. So the two of us are doing a strategy session. So a lot of people who joined us on our AERP class are going to be joining us on this. So that's great.
Right, so there's a bunch of questions. Can we rewatch it? I missed way too much. So yeah, we're gonna put this on YouTube. Maybe by tomorrow or something. There was a few questions about dice that I think we
Roll
need
dice.
to-
And I don't know if anybody is a fan of Modern Family, the TV show, or if you've been to Sloperama, Tom Sloper's website. As much as we all believe we play with people that are honest and we wouldn't play otherwise, whether or not you play for money, there are certain people that winning is, or cheating is an illness. I mean, they have to win at all costs. So if I have,
We did a video on it and people were like mortified, right?
if I have a joker in my hand and I'm mixing the tiles and I know that I'm East and I'm going to get those first 4, or my group always breaks at 4, so we know no one's cheating, well, then I know I'm going to get the second 4. It's very easy to put the tile down and know where I put it. So when we first started this business, and it's so funny because I see it's like one of our first pair of peacock dice, I dealt myself a winning hand. I literally dealt myself a heavenly hand. Because if you know where to hide all the jokers, you could put 4 jokers exactly where you're going to get tiles. So starting with 4 jokers is, so Donna, if you could answer the questions, because I'm going to see what.
So Elena just asked, what's a big barker? It's one of the products on our website. It's in the visual. Big Barker is a squeaky, soft toy for dogs. It floats, it squeaks. And then there's a little cat toy. It's time for Mah Jongg, and it's got catnip in it. So it's just, we do stuff for dogs and cats, not just people. Never thought about cheating. No one ever did. When we did this video, people were shocked. People say, are you going to cheat over 25 cents? Yeah, they will. It's not the point of the money. It's, as Dara said, is some people just have to win it at all costs. So that's interesting. And it is a rule on the back of the card. I mean, it, you know, when people say, why roll dice? It's, if you read the card, East rolls the dice. I mean, it's the first rule. So it's a rule. We're rule followers here as much as we can. Barbara, I subbed in a game with a cheater. Yeah, so yes, there are some people that do. And
So you know, you're immediately all is just shorter, because obviously to have you guys copy CDN-Shopify, I mean, that's just such a long thing. So Bitly links are always cat sensitive, you know. So it's also you that link, and you know, well, if you're not on our email list, the best thing to do is go to modernmahjong.com and scroll all the way to the bottom. And actually, you know what? Maybe I'll just do that. Hold on one second.
And then we'll send you our newsletter.
So share screen. Okay, so this is our, can you see my screen, Donna?
Yes.
Okay, so this is our small business website where we have dice and tiles and our books and our cups, and there's my sister and my mom and my dog. If you keep scrolling all the way down, well, actually, let me go even slower. If you go on the left, if you are traveling or if you are looking for games, we have directories for teachers. We have places to play. We have directory of events and tournaments. And then if you keep scrolling down, it says be in the know. If you put your email right there and then hit subscribe, you'll get our email. And once this is live on YouTube, we will send out an email to everybody saying it's live, and we will include a link to the switchable hand PDF. And then everything that we shared today, we're going to put in a PDF, and that is going to be, let's see, do I have that here?
Just search PDF. Yeah, it'll come up.
Yeah, so that is
Printable.
going to be
Yeah.
right here, and we'll send that to you to print out. So, let me stop
Yeah,
my-
Barbara, we also sell Mahjong Made Easy. That is a book of rules put out by the National Mahjong League. So we have that on our website. We sell cards. We still have some cards, 2024 cards. We have card covers. So check out our website.
So some quick answers to questions. Yes, you can play with 3. The official rules, you don't do a Charleston, but you could discuss with your friends. And if you want to do a Charleston, you can. One great way of doing it is making sure that you are not getting any jokers. You just kind of make sure that the first 3 tiles you're sharing don't have any jokers.
Yeah, Rochelle, we do sell ship to Canada. I mean, it's expensive, and there's customs, but yes, we do.
And we do have cards in stock now.
We do.
So if you buy from us, if you buy from the league, there's no shipping charge. If you buy from us, we do tracking. So there is a shipping charge, but you will receive tracking. If
That's
you
funny.
order,
Nan says, Donna, is that your ketubah in the background? Yes, that's my wedding contract with my husband.
if you ordered from us to benefit Alzheimer's and you did not get your card yet, we were told, it was confirmed by the league. Normally, when Donna and we always do different things just to see how the shipping works. We'll order 1 card to our house. We'll order a bunch of cards. Normally, the bunch get delivered the quickest because they're like packages, or for some reason this year, the USPS had some kind of weird calculation, and a lot of cards that were addressed correctly and a lot of cards that were 6 or more or 4 or more got returned, even though they were correctly posted and correctly mailed. So we don't do the mailing. We are just sharing the information that was passed along to us. But if you did order directly from Mahjong Dice, you could send us an email if you didn't get your cards yet. If you paid by credit card before January, whatever, you did not order from us. So unfortunately, we cannot help you. On the bottom of the Mahjong League's website, they have a 212 area code. 99% of the time, the calls that we receive are very appreciative and very sweet. When people call and yell,
99.
well, when people call and yell at us that they didn't get the card that they ordered from us, and they describe other products that we don't sell, we're like, wait, hold on, that's not us. So, but yeah, we're happy to help you if you ordered through us. So I'm just going to.
Toby ordered 150 cards through us, and she received them in March. So that's good to know.
So yeah, so somebody asked, we have 2 Facebook groups, or pages. We have a page, Modern Mahjong, and that's mainly talking about our products and different things. And then our Facebook group is Mahjong Community, and that is where we share rule posts and videos and graphics. And as much as we might appear, like I remember the old saying, like, I'm not a doctor, but I play one on TV. You know, thank you to Mahjong for the only reason I had social media before, and I know my kids aren't watching this, so I can say it, was to spy on my kids. I mean, I did not post anything on Instagram. I didn't know how to do videos. I mean, all of this we've learned because of Mahjong. So thank you to all of you for upping our game. So in many ways.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody. And yeah, if you have any more questions, just send an email.
And if anybody wants to raise their hands, I mean, you could raise your hand by clicking on the little thing and then talk a question.
Yeah, we know it was a lot to go through very quickly. So send us an email, follow us on Facebook, and we'll try and answer more questions. And keep playing. I mean, that's the best thing, is to play as much as you can. Play on real Mahjong, you know, online, however you can. And as Dara said, we're going to do a giveaway on the American Mahjong practice app, which is great. And as Dara told me when I was on a trip last week, you don't need Wi-Fi. So you can have the practice app on your phone and just practice the card, you know, playing different hands on the card, which was great.
So that's a great question. We mentioned that. I like games that look as much like the actual game, you know, just very simple. So I personally prefer real Mahjong. I know a lot of people who really love the aspects of, I mean, all of them have their benefits. I love Maj, has a lot of like tutoring rooms. Mahjong Time really has a lot of guilds where people earn points and fight against each other. And so there's marathons. So really it's, some of them have, Mahjong has some free ones. a lot of them have a free trial. So it's like, you know, a pair of shoes, like try them on for a little bit and see which ones you like. Some of them let you just do for a month. You save if you do it for the year. And then what Donna was mentioning is the American Mahjong practice app. And that I think is like $10 or something like that. And what's great is while you're playing, you can look and see, and I only suggest this while you're first learning the card, but you could look and see how many tiles you are away from all the different hands. So it's really a great way to learn. So somebody asked if a hand is
that's what
dead.
it looks like. This is what it looks like.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So Shelley, that depends. So if a hand is dead because all the nines are out but needed, it all depends. So a hand is only dead if you have exposures and there's no other hand it could be. So if all the nines are out, but your exposure is still allowing you to go for another hand, even though you're not going to win it, technically your hand isn't dead. And a dead hand, and this is something that a lot of players sometimes get, if your tile, let's say somebody needs a single 4-bam and all the other 4-bams are out, but I have it, for that reason, you can't call someone dead for a tile based on your hand. It has to be either an exposure or a discard. It has to be tiles seen by everyone. So congratulations, Barb completed the entire 2023 card. Very nice. Yeah, I think we're gonna have a lot of celebrations for the highest value hand in singles and pairs this year. Oh, so Shelley wants to know what happened. So if you call someone dead and they admit it, they agree, then they stop picking and the other 3 people get extra picks. If they say, no, I'm not, you wait until the end of the game. And then at that point, whoever was correct owes the other person 50 cents. What I always think is interesting is it's kind of like a snapshot in time. So later on, by the end of the game, the tiles they may have needed might then have been discarded. So if you know your hand is still alive at that point, I would take a picture of the table and show the discards, you know, if it's really that competitive. Because sometimes people might not know another hand that the tiles can be used for, and they might not recognize it. And you can just say, yes, I am, or no, I'm not. You do not have to interact. In Mahjong Made It Easy this year, they added something which I love. If you say to someone, I think you're dead, or that's a dead hand challenge. You can't get around that 50-cent thing by kind of being sneaky about it. So just watch what you're saying. If you think someone's hand is dead, make sure you're ready to declare them dead. Or if not, just don't say anything. Oh, so yes. So Barbara has a great comment. If you are playing a hand and your hand is dead and you agree, all the tiles, if you're playing an exposed hand, all the tiles prior to that have to stay up on the rack. All the new tiles that were just put up get pulled back into the rack. The reason those get pulled back is any of those jokers that made the hand dead cannot be exchanged. If you're playing, and this is where I might lose a few people, but if you're playing a concealed hand and you have Mahjong in error, so all your tiles are out, even if your first exposure that had jokers in it could be used in, so let's say you're doing the bottom winds and dragons with 3 norths, and then you wind up exposing 3 norths, east, west, south, and matching numbers. Even though there's other hands with 3 norths, those tiles are all returned to the tray because you had Mahjong in error with a concealed hand. So that's kind of an exception to when you can exchange a joker. So even though it's a valid exposure when it was made, the fact that you exposed a concealed hand and had exposures, none of those jokers are exchangeable. So that's usually the most confusing part of it. And we have explanations of those in our book and on Facebook.
I think somebody asked, can you have all jokers if it's not a single and pair? But we've been asked that a few times. And if you need 3 nines and you have 3 jokers, yes, you can. You don't need.
So it's funny because I always, and sometimes I just remember when I was learning. So yes, any exposure could be made up of all jokers. The only caveat that I just want to remind players, somebody might hear that and think, oh, great. Well, if I need a 2 dot and I have 2 jokers and someone throws a joker, I could call that joker for the 2 dot. When you win, any grouping could be made of all jokers.
Right.
You can never call a joker. So when you win, yes, anything. And if you have a 2 dot, if you have just jokers in your hand and someone throws a 2 dot, you could call that 2 dot without having any natural tile. You don't need the natural tile in your hand. Mahjong playing cards. I mean, personally, I love Canasta. I love playing cards, but when I'm playing Mahjong, I love tiles. But I mean, some people like them. I mean, it would probably be a good idea to get racks. I mean, I know you could find racks to hold the cards. That might be helpful. So then that way it's kind of a little bit more like Mahjong than holding the cards in your hand.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Yeah, so if you teach and you want to get we have a free directory, send us an email to Modern Mahjong with 1g@gmail.com. We'll add you to our directory. We've had people call us or email us and say, can you please take me off for the month or so because I'm so busy from all the calls. Right. So it's great. And if you are a host of public games, we don't want to give out anybody's private address or phone number. If you're a host of public games, same thing, send us an email. We'd be happy. When we have free time, we are going to go through the directory of public places and update it. We just have not had a chance. So
it's been a little busy. Okay.
So Sharon, you could say the name of the tile. So Donna throws a 7 dot and then it's my turn. I could say 7 dot. I could say same. I could say joker. And the reason you want to say same is Mahjong's a looking and listening game. So if somebody's not looking and they say same, they think you just threw a 7 dot and they don't realize that you're probably doing a singles and pairs hand or that you need, a single or pair. So same is a good way to go. Still never can call a joker, even if you say the same. Years ago, because we found 1970 something rules, years ago, if somebody said it, you could get the tile before the joker, but that's been changed for a long time ago.
Right.
So, all right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody.
We hope you sign up for our upcoming Zoom, and you could make sure you sign up for our emails and we'll send you information.
Have a good night, everybody.